Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week's 10 days. For today's second video, that will take us to around the 12th of November, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks, and of course have a look at the CFS V2 at the end of the video for the next month as well, which of course will take us more or less to the end of November. Weekend forecast has been released. It's quite a difficult week ahead to forecast in terms of the detail, but the broad trend is very unsettled. We're going to have lots of cold November rain, and there's going to be maybe some hill snow across the northern parts of the country as well. We're starting very windy down in the south today with severe gales, but I don't think wind is going to be too much of a feature over the next few days over next week, but it's just going to be very unsettled. The Atlantic onslaught continues with further rain at times. As I say, there could be some hill snow up in the north as well later in the week. So have a look at weekend forecast and see what's going on. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest donor. So we have had a donation for gas service through PayPal from Anthony McManus. Anthony McManus has become our latest PayPal donor. So a big thank you, Anthony, for becoming our latest donor. Thank you so much for doing that. That's really, really kind, and thanks very, very much for doing that. If you would like to become a PayPal donor for gas service, all you need to do is come to the gas service PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then you give a donation to Gasworthies to help us pay for the website, keep the content online, and by doing that you're going to get a mention in the videos as long as you want one. Some people have chosen not to have a mention, and that's absolutely fine. If that's what you want, that's no problem whatsoever. Just let us know when you make your donation. We'll just thank sort of an anonymous person. You'll know who you are and I know who you are, but we won't mention your name in the video. But otherwise you will get a mention, and we'll say thank you so much for doing that, as we have done just now for Anthony. Also, you can become a patron for Gasworthies. So this is Gasworthies Patreon page. Got 62 patrons so far. So hello to all 62 of our patrons. If you would like to become a patron for Gasworthies, again, all you need to come to Gasworthies Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one. I mean, give an ongoing monthly donation can be anything from $1 a month upwards to Gasworthies. And again, by doing that, you're helping us to pay the website and keep the content online. Again, whether you do it through Patreon or PayPal, you're going to get a mention in videos, give you a shout out, say thank you very much for doing that. So a big thank you to all of our patrons, a big thank you to all of our donors, and a special thank you to latest donor Anthony McManus. Thank you so much, Anthony, for becoming our latest donor. Thank you so much for doing that. Right, let's get on video. Let's start off with the central England temperature. So just confirming what we said yesterday. So the CET for October did indeed come in at 10.0, an anomaly of 0.6 below average, so more than half a degree below average, meaning that this October was a genuinely colder than average month, set against both 61 to 1990, 81 to 2010. No getting away from it. This has been a cold and average month. Our first, set against 61 to 1990, our first cold and average month since March 2018. That number, 10.0, is very interesting. It's the first time since the 1700s that we have had an October CT coming out dead on 10.0. So that's quite an interesting sort of quirk that we've had there. I'm not sure why it's taken so long to get an October CT number of 10.0, but there we go, bang on 10 degrees, and that's it. So again, it was our first colder average month, set against 61 to 1990 since March 2018, but we have had one or two cold average months set against 81 to 2010, which is the more modern and warmer average. For example, May this year was colder than average, set against 81 to 2010, but it was near normal, set against 61 to 1990. As far as November is concerned, well, we only have one day in, of course, but up to the 1st, we're sitting at 10.6, an anomaly of 1.5 degrees above average for the first day of November. That's going to fall away, I think, quite quickly through the coming week, because we are in for a pretty chilly week, to say the least. And this confirms it. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECM on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have in a moment, is on the bottom. So 500 millibars, 85 feet area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure have been moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. You can see that the ECM has this trough of below average heights centred across many central and southern parts of Europe, and at the same time it's got a ridge of above average heights that's extending from the Atlantic to the northwest of the country and then up towards the Scandinavian high. Flying the jet stream coming across the Atlantic with some of the energy going up there and some of the energy going down into this trough of low pressure. But the upshot is that by day 10, it looks like we'll be bringing in winds from an east to potentially slightly northeasterly direction. So that implies as we get up towards the middle part of November, not into the middle part of November, of course, day 10 could be the 12th. Or around the 12th of November, but certainly going up towards the middle of November, it looks like we're going to be quite cold, bringing in the wind from an easterly direction. This is how the GFS is looking. It's very similar, not quite as much high pressure to the north, but there is some above average heights around Greenland and Iceland. The main thing, though, again, is this trough of below average heights that we've got sitting here over the UK and extending down through many central and western southern parts of Europe. The flow of the jet going like that, so on the cold side of the jet stream, looking unsettled as well, entrenching cool or cold air into that trough of low pressure. So both models signalling cool and quite unsettled conditions, I think, as we move up towards day 10. But possibly, by the time we get through to day 10 itself, an increasing trend towards higher pressure, which may bring drier conditions, but perhaps still quite cold. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles next 2 weeks. I'm at Gravesend today. This is another suggested location. If you would like to have your local town or city featured in this section of the video, then please let us know through the comments, or you can email galservice@gmail.com or ask us on social media, and we'll add you to the list, and you'll have your local sort of town or city featured in this part of the video. Don't think we can go down to village level at this point, but certainly local towns and cities can be featured. So we're looking at Gravesend today. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Gravesend. We're starting off quite close to average at the moment. We're going to stay reasonably close to average at Gravesend the rest of the weekend into the early part of next week. But through next week, the temperatures are falling away, becoming cold. It's been the trend within the ensemble output for quite a few days now. So it looks like the temperatures will be going colder as we get through into next week. No sign of anything particularly mild coming up. By the middle and into the second half of the month, that's this period just here, very long way out. By that point, it does look as though we might start to see a slight recovery in the temperature, but even then, still no real suggestion that it's going definitively mild on average, and staying unsettled. There's regular rainfall spikes coming through. So, as we've been saying in the videos over the past few days, week or so, it looks like the first 10 days of November certainly is going to be cool and unsettled. Probably, you would say, the first half of November now looking cool and unsettled. And there is a chance of quite cold weather actually coming up for a time later next week. Temperature anomalies from the 2nd to the 10th of November, coming out a little bit below average for the UK and Ireland. Notice a very cold week for Scandinavia. Temperature anomalies up there across a large part of Scandinavia, particularly Norway, are sort of 8 to 8 or 10 degrees below average. A really cold week. Winter really biting in the far north of Europe in the weekend. We're not as cold as that in the UK and Ireland, but nevertheless we are a little bit below average, and that does take into account today's still relatively mild temperatures. I would expect to see these trending colder in the next couple of days. Precipitation anomalies, again, the story that we've had for quite a lot of the time this autumn continues. So average to above average rainfall, average to slightly below average temperatures. The cool and unsettled autumn of 2019 continues. That's how the GFS is looking for Tuesday. This is bonfire night, of course. So low pressure finally clearing away into southern North Sea and the north of France on Tuesday. Opening the door to these pretty cold northeasterly winds. That gives us a quieter interval later Tuesday and into Wednesday, but we still have these areas of low pressure menacing out to our west, and these low pressures are moving in across the country into the second half next week. Therefore, we're back under low pressure. That will probably give us another bout of rain, and as that low comes into the cold air across the north, there could be some hill snow for parts of northern England and particularly across Scotland. This is all covered by weekend forecast, of course. Friday, that first low is moving into the North Sea, but yes, you guessed it, the next low is in the Atlantic. That's moving through from Friday through to Saturday. Again, coming into quite cold air, particularly in the north and northeast. Could get some hill snow there, just cold rain. For the rest of us into Sunday, and that low pressure then doing similar to the previous low pressures, moving into the southern North Sea, opening the door to quite a cold east or northeasterly wind. Moving up towards day 10, just signs of a little bit of a change then, starting to get a little bit more ridging building from sort of the Azores high towards the Scandinavian high. These two areas of high pressure, we've got a high just there, which is a bit of a Scandinavian high, and we've got a high down around the Azores, of course. And those two ridges are trying to form sort of a large area of high pressure, but it's still a very buoyant Atlantic, so any attempt at a ridge doesn't really come to much as this next low just begins to sink in from the northwest. It's a little bit beyond day 10 now, to Wednesday the 13th of November. The next low is sinking in from the Atlantic. That brings us probably another bout of wet weather. And then once that one gets out of the way, we just stay quite unsettled, really. We're neither under high pressure or low pressure there. So again, we're having a go at building a little bit of a ridge, but it's very inconclusive whether we pull it off. We've still got plenty of low pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland. One thing we can say, though, is that this is still going to be quite cool. All the time, the jet stream, which is indicated by the black line just here, all the time that jet stream is aligning northwest to southeast, which it is doing much of the time, at least to the south of the UK, then we will continue to pull in, if not cold, certainly quite cool and chilly air from the north. So this looks like it's going to be quite a chilly, certainly first half to November to me. There's no sign of any sustained sort of mild southwesterlies on the way in the foreseeable future, which is certainly the next 10 days. The GM looks like that, so the low pressure is exiting away to the east on Tuesday, pulling in these pretty cold northeasterly winds in its wake, and then low pressure moves back in from off the Atlantic around the middle part of the week. As that low comes into cold air, it could deposit some hill snow across the northern parts of the country. By the end of next week, that low is clearing away into the North Sea, but look at this, there's the next low that's out in the Atlantic. Where's that one going to go? Well, you've guessed it, it's moving in as we go into next weekend. So by the time it's reached the 10th of November, we're back under low pressure again and looking very unsettled as well. That low then starts to sink away to the south as a ridge begins to build to the north and the northwest. So by the time we get through to day 10, which is Tuesday the 12th of November, we have got a Scandinavian high there at 1,035 millibars, and with below pressure becoming a cut-off low down towards Spain and Portugal, we are actually turning wind into the east. It's not a particularly cold easterly, but it's an interesting pattern. Whenever you see low pressures doing this, so let's see where the low pressure starts. On Saturday the 9th, there is below in a really quite typical position in the North Atlantic. That's where the low is on Sunday the 10th, so it's moving into the UK, so going in that sort of direction. But then as we go to Monday the 11th, the low, instead of pushing west to east, which is the typical zonal flow, the low is actually slipping away to the south, so the low is across France. So what the low has actually done, it's done something a bit like that, which is quite unusual, especially at this time of the year, because it's normally a very zonal time of the year. So we can see low pressures diving southwards like that, particularly at this point of the year it can be a sign that the atmosphere is doing something a little bit unusual. So the upshot is we finish up by Tuesday the 12th with high pressure over Scandinavia and wind in from kind of like an east to southeast. It's not a cold easterly, but it's an interesting evolution, and that won't be particularly cold in November, but if you do on the 12th of November, but if you do that on the 12th of January or the 12th of February, then you definitely have to start thinking about snow being the result of low pressures doing that kind of thing. Not necessarily saying we will see that pattern repeating in the middle of the winter, but if we did, then we would be in for cold times. This is how the ECM is looking. So again, that low pressure is clearing away to our southeast on bonfire night. We pull in some colder winds from the northeast, and then low pressure coming back in off the Atlantic. Again, you'll notice these lows with the jet stream are digging sort of southwards. So instead of going in that direction, which is the normal direction they would take, the lows are actually going in that direction, slipping southeastwards and taking rain, particularly to southern and western parts of the country. That's how we look on the 8th of November. The low is off the southeast coast of England. We're bringing in an east wind. Again, it's not a cold wind particularly, probably quite cold for the time of year, but it's not going to be cold enough for widespread snow because it's the 8th of November. But do that on the 8th of January, that low will deposit a snow event to much of England and Wales, or it would do. Then we go towards day 10, and what happens is that high pressure increasingly building over Scandinavia. These are very, very interesting charts, I have to say, in terms of what the atmosphere is doing here. We get through to day 10, which is Tuesday the 12th of November, and again, we've got this ridge from the Azores going to Scandinavia. And we are pulling in a little bit of an easy wind. Again, if we look at the upper air temperatures, I don't think they're going to be particularly cold, although they are pushing a -5 Celsius ice across the country. I actually have a little puddle of -10 Celsius HPA air sitting over the other side of the North Sea. So that actually is quite a cold east. I'm a little bit surprised at how cold that is. And I no doubt if we look to the ensembles, that will be a bit of an outlier. But it's just a suggestion that definitely this first half of November is looking quite cold. It is looking unsettled as well. Plenty of rain around. And the atmosphere is doing something that is quite unusual for the time of the year. And when I see low pressures and high pressures reacting to one another in this way in November, I get a little bit interested, I have to say. But we shall see where that evolves over the next few weeks. Of course, it's very, very early days in terms of the coming winter. This is how the precipitation type forecast is looking for the next 10 days from Precipitation.com based on that ECM run. So we know we've got lots of wet weather around today. Very unsettled day with unusually deep areas of low pressure. We keep rain or showers or long spells of rain rotating around that low pressure through the rest of the weekend into early next week. This is Monday, more showers or longer spells of rain again, particularly affecting Scotland, England and Wales. That takes through to Tuesday. Things just starting to dry out a little bit on Tuesday. Showers tending to become more confined to the east and around these coastal areas. A reasonable amount of dry weather through to the middle part of next week, and then in comes this next low, which is Wednesday through to Thursday. But notice the rain is struggling to get across onto the eastern side of the country, sort of stalling out in the west actually, and then slipping southwards. So this brings quite a lot of heavy rain to western parts of the country and also to England and Wales. But Scotland and eastern England, the rain is struggling to make it across. Again, that's something that is always quite interesting at this time of year when you see low pressure struggling to get across to the east side of the country. We're through to the end of next week now, and we've got that low pressure sitting off the southeast coast of England. That's bringing a lot of heavy rain and quite cold northeasterly winds to England and Wales. That is just heavy rain, and that's purely because it's the 8th of November. But as I said when I was going through the charts, if that was to happen on the 8th of January, then most of that across England and Wales would be snow. And again, it's purely due to the time of the year, but means that we're only talking about rain here rather than anything particularly wintry. But I think there will be snow next week, actually, over northern high ground, but you probably have to go quite a long way up to find it. So we're going through towards the latter stage of the ECM run now. Here comes the next low pressure moving in from west. Again, this one is struggling to push across to the eastern side of the country as well. Notice again how the wet weather with this is mainly in the west and across more southern areas before the low slides away. And that's how we look at day 10, or heading up towards day 10. Which is going to get us to the, let's see what date is, that's going to be the 12th of November, bringing in easterly winds. It's mainly dry because we're under a ridge of high pressure by that point, but as we saw with the upper air temperatures, quite cold. Excuse me, these are the ECMWF, excuse me again, ECMWF ensembles for day 10. This will be 12th of November. These are all of the options that are on the table from the ECM ensembles today from the Icelandic Met Office. So we have 20 members of the ECM ensembles with this ridge of above average heights from the west, or out to west, going up to our northeast. They're bringing quite cold northeasterly winds. 14, including the operational and the control run that have the above average heights in the Atlantic going up towards northern blocking feature. Low pressures a little bit closer to us to our south, again bringing quite cold northeasterly winds with those. 11 have us under a deep trough of low pressure. They're going to be very unsettled. We are on the cold side of the jet stream with that as well, though. So they're cool and unsettled. And then 6 with low pressure up around Greenland, Iceland, and a ridge of high pressure extending from the Atlantic through the UK. We're on the milder side of the jet stream with that one, so that's probably the mildest option. Although within that ridge of high pressure, it could still be a little bit on the chilly side, probably with frost and fog. And then these are the options that we've got on the table for 2 weeks' time. This is for the 17th of November, going into the second half of the month. So 16 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure out to our west, diving southwards, coming up against this big blocking area of high pressure to the northeast, so the jet stream with that, doing something a bit like that. And we may be pulling in a bit of an easterly wind across eastern parts of the country. 13 with low pressure to the west, to the south. Again, you see that blocking area of high pressure over Scandinavia. 12 with high pressure out to the southwest, low pressure to the north. That's a slightly milder scenario. That's bringing more of a westerly flow, although with a bit of moderation from the northwest. 5 with a Greenland high and low pressure sort of over to west country. That's very unsettled. And then another 5 actually has us under high pressure to our north. That's a big blocking area, high pressure as well. That would be bringing cold winds from the east or northeast. With this low pressure to the south, there may even be a little bit of wintry potential in with those 5. Quite a few options on the table, therefore, in the day 10 to 14 time frame. But I think what we definitely say is that up to day 10, things are looking quite cool and quite unsettled, maybe even fairly cold at times. Finally, just having a look at CFS-V2. These are 500 millibar heights, broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 2nd to the 8th of November. The coming week has some high pressure over Greenland and in the middle of the Atlantic. There's also a ridge across southeastern Europe, but it's very mild there, I would have thought, in the far east and southeast of Europe. But under this ridge of, under this trough, I should say, of low pressure, we're cool and unsettled, very unsettled indeed, and quite cool as well. Week 2 looks like that. It's the 9th to 15th of November. Low pressure out to the west and the northwest. Jet stream is diving southwards as well, so we're on the cold side of the jet and still looking unsettled there. Then we go through to week 3, which is the 16th to the 22nd of November. Low pressure out to the northwest. Ridge building across eastern and northeastern parts of Europe. That's looking quite unsettled and maybe a little bit less cold there in week 3. And then week 4, which is the 23rd to the 29th of November, under that trough of low pressure. Unsettled, very cool. Notice all the time the Azores high is pulled out into the middle of the Atlantic. So the Azores, that's the Azores high just there, out in the middle of the Atlantic, unable to bring us very mild air from the southwest, as it would normally do so. And so it means that whilst it's not desperately cold, because we're not pulling in genuine northerly or northeasterly winds, it is cool because the jet stream continues to be aligned northwest to southeast, which allows cool air to entrench into this trough of low pressure and just looks quite cool and unsettled even to the end of November there. So these are interesting times. They're interesting charts that we're seeing here for November. I wouldn't necessarily go over town with predict anything too wintry at the moment because we're very early on. We're only into the opening days of November. So away from higher ground and northern Scotland, I don't think many of us will be seeing any snowflakes in the next week to 10 days. It's more of a pattern overall that is quite interesting, rather than what the weather itself is going to be doing, which certainly for the next week, probably a little bit beyond, looks very unsettled and, say, a lot of cold November rain. But as we get further and further on, if we keep these patterns going, if we keep this unusual placement of the jet stream and the unusual sort of reactions between high pressure and low pressure that we're seeing in the next week, 10 days, if we was to keep that going into the end of November and then roll it on into December, then things would start to get a lot more interesting. So we'll just see how it develops over the next few days. But what I'm seeing within the weather patterns at the moment is untypical for early November. And we shall see. We shall see how it all evolves in the next weeks, in the next few weeks. Right, so that's it for your videos for today. We've got the 10th Winter 2019-2020 update coming up for you tomorrow. It's going to be a real epic. You're going to have loads of analogues with that starting October data. We'll also be bringing you up to date with what's happening with ENSO, with Eurasia's snow cover, you know, all of the things that we feature in the winter update. So that's tomorrow, 10 a.m. There'll be no live stream with that winter update tomorrow. The live streams will be back with the 11th winter update, which will be a week tomorrow, of course. But we have got your 10th winter update, of course. We won't miss that out. Right, so that's it for videos for today. Come back tomorrow for the 10th winter update. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.